Hello students, I'm Samila Herath. Today I thought of starting with the literature syllabus set for the grade 11 students. So I'm going to start with the first poem in the syllabus for grade 11. So that's I Know Why the Cage Bird Sings by Maya Angelou. I suppose before we start the poem, I should give you a kind of information about the poetess Maya Angelou and about the background of this poem as well. So, before we step into that particular stage of our lesson, we'll talk about Maya Angelou. Maya Angelou is an African-American poetess. So I suppose you can see the picture here. So this is Maya Angelou, and African American, by the term African American, actually it's a hybrid term. She has a hybrid nationality because she belonged to the black people of Africa. Of course, she was not born in Africa. She was born to the American nation in the country of America, but her ancestors belonged to Africa. Her roots were there in Africa. Her forefathers were there in Africa. So she belonged to the particular set of people who were brought to America from Africa as slaves. I think that you know something about slavery. So slavery in America had been a very popular topic those days. People of course did not approve it, but anyway there had been slavery in America for so long. And I think that you know how all those things happened. So these American people, the white people, they were exploring the continent of Africa during the ages of their development. So they were constantly in search and they were constantly interested in the African continent. And they were actually smuggling everything. Not everything means there are precious things, that means there are spices, gems and things like that, and the tusks of the elephants and all. So those things they were smuggling. They were forcing the native people to give those things to them, and they brought them to their own country, America. So they were actually in constant search of these things in their process of development. So Africa had been the victim of their constant search of development. And not only that, not only the materialistic things, they were interested in the human population in African continent as well. So they thought these black people who had immense strength, immense physical strength and speed and agility in themselves, they thought of using them as well in their own country as slaves. So these people were brought into America forcefully. They were captured while they were in their habitats, that means the jungles and the villages, because they were actually not very developed during that time. They were in tribes, in tribal groups. So they were forcefully brought into America by the white American people, and then they were sold at auctions. So it had been quite an inhuman action where these humans were sold to the highest bidder, the highest white bidder, as slaves. So that's what happened. That's how these black people came and settled down in America. So that's really a big story. I know that this explanation is not at all enough. It's only a tiny bit of an explanation. You'll have to search through the internet. You'll have to find out how these black people came into being in America. And the story does not end there. So there's a very big history about their story of their came into being in America. So after the slavery started, it had been there for generations and generations, and I think you have heard about a person called a president called Abraham Lincoln. So Abraham Lincoln had been the 16th president of America. So he was elected as the president of America in 1860, and after he came into power, he thought of this inhuman act which had turned out to be a severe discrimination on the black-skinned people. They had become slaves, they were sold, and generations after generations even, they had to work for their white owners, white masters. They did not have any way of escape. They were discriminated, they were oppressed, and they did not have their human rights. The white people had discriminated them, suppressed them, and they had violated their human rights as humans. So they were treated as animals. So it had been a very cruel era of history of America. Actually, a very actually quite a black mark in their history. So this great leader, Abraham Lincoln, when he came into power, from the beginning he was against of this slavery, and after he came into power in 1863, he had forwarded Emancipation Proclamation, a proclamation called Emancipation Proclamation. That means a freedom act for these slaves. So in this proclamation, he had included a statement like this in this proclamation. He had stated that all slaves in the states means America, all slaves in the states shall be thenceforward and forever free. So that's what he had included in his Emancipation Proclamation. It was forwarded on somewhere in September 1862, and from January 1st, 1863, it had come into action. It had come into action in January 1863. So even though their freedom was given in that manner, actually their freedom did not exist. The freedom did not practically existed in America, although they were legally given freedom. So due to this attitude of Abraham Lincoln, finally he had to pay from his life as well. In 1865, he was assassinated by a person who was quite in support with the views of slavery, and he had to pay from his life also. This great leader of the nation, this great leader of the whole world actually. So he had to give his life also in support to these black American people. Right. So that was some of the background I have given you. And after that, though they were legally given freedom, they did not enjoy the freedom. They were constantly discriminated throughout the country, generations after generations. Black skin was detested by the society. Wherever they went, people neglected them, people detested them, and people did not want to give them their true rights as humans. So that was the kind of the situation prevailed within America those days. To this type of country, to such a country, Maya Angelou, our own poetess in discussion today, was born in 1928. So the times have passed, the same customs and traditions existed, nothing changed. Even though they were legally given freedom, they did not enjoy that freedom practically because they were constantly discriminated and segregated. So to such a society, Maya Angelou was born in 1928, 4th of April. And her childhood had been quite a tragic childhood, I must mention. So you can't rely on me for all the information. It's impossible for me to give all the information through this video clip. So you have to find out information by yourself. So refer to the website, search for Maya Angelou, so you will get lots and lots of information about Maya Angelou. I will just present you a wee bit of information about her which are necessary for our poem today, because still I am setting the background to the poem. So Maya Angelou was born with a black skin and with the look of a Negroid in 1928, and because of her black skin she was discriminated in the society by the white people throughout her childhood. So she had her own personal problems because of the family matters. So her father and mother, they were not in good terms. They had constant rows and fights between themselves, and because of that the little girl had to suffer, and she was actually in a traumatic mental condition as well during her childhood. So that was of course her family problems. Other than these family problems, she got to know, she gradually learned that she was being condemned because of her black skin wherever she went. So she did not like that. She hated that. She started hating the white skins of the white Americans because they also hated her, and her action was in return to that. And she wanted to raise her voice against this unfair treatment to the black people. She wanted to be a representative for the black people. She wanted to struggle for the black nation. She wanted to have their rights implemented in the country fairly for them, to have a free life, to enjoy a free life as the white Americans do. So one of her measures she was taken was, she became, as a result of her struggle, she became the first black street car conductor in San Francisco. So that was one of her victories she had in her early youth. She was not a matured woman by that time, but anyway she became the first streetcar conductor in the city of San Francisco in America, at which time they detested such conductors, but she became the first black conductor. So that was a victory of her life. And slowly, to escape from these mentalities, to escape from this discrimination, she had her own way of escapism. She found refuge in literature. She found refuge in dancing. She found refuge in acting. So she became a dancer, an actor, a writer, and also a political activist as well. So as a result, through so many struggles and hardships, pathos and traumas, she finally emerged as a colossal figure of America, representing the black nation. So she turned out to be, as this script says, she turned out to be an American poetess, a singer, a memoirist, and a civil rights activist as well. She worked along with Martin Luther King, the Jr. You must have heard of him, no? So she worked along with them also in the freedom struggle for this black nation, representing the black nation of America. And she always felt that the voice of the blacks in America constantly goes unheard. Nobody pays any heed towards them. So their voice is unheard. That's what she always believed. So she wanted to make her voice heard by the whole world, not only by the white Americans, by the whole world. So she was addressing the entire world of the discrimination they had to face as a nation. As a result of that, she had started writing because I think you must have heard the famous saying that pen is mightier than the sword. So, more than struggling with weapons and things like that, a struggle you create through pen is far more advisable and wise as well. So, she had selected that path and she had started writing a lot of literary works. So as a result, she had produced 7 autobiographies. She could not write her whole life story within one book. She produced 7 books, 7 autobiographies. And she had named her first autobiography in the same name that we find this poem, I Know Why the Caged Bird Sings. So that had been her first autobiography. So she had taken the same name to this poem as well. And this is the poem we are going to deal with, not with the autobiography. So that is a little bit of information about Maya Angelou and about the civil war they had in America some time back from 1861 to 1865, and the kind of violence they had between these two nations in the same country. Americans, both groups are called Americans, but one set is called as Black Americans and the other set is called as White Americans. White Americans believed that they were the owners of the land, whereas the Black Americans had been intruders. They had come, not forcefully actually, the white Americans had brought them, but anyway, the whites believed that they had forced themselves into the country. So they were segregated because of that. Whites were not ready to forget their history of slavery. They wanted to treat all blacks as slaves even after the freedom that they were given by the great President Abraham Lincoln. So this is the background for the poem. So I suppose you are clear with the background.